Xin chào quý vị đến với buổi giao lưu trực tuyến và chia sẻ thông tin về chương trình lấy thường trú nhân Úc nhanh chóng theo diện tài năng độc lập, được tổ chức bởi Prospero Consulting và đối tác luật sư ASHTON Legal. Chúng tôi Prospero Consulting chuyên cung cấp các giải pháp tối ưu về du học, đầu tư sinh lời và tiến tới định cư được tại các nước như Úc, Canada, New Zealand và châu Âu. Prospero Consulting hân hạnh giới thiệu luật sư Ruobing Yang và luật sư Minh Nguyễn đến từ văn phòng luật ASHTON Legal. Đây là hai luật sư ưu tú và có bề dày kinh nghiệm trong lĩnh vực di trú tại Úc. Trong buổi trao đổi ngày hôm nay, luật sư sẽ đem đến những thông tin mới nhất về chương trình cũng như giải đáp toàn bộ các thắc mắc của quý vị. Ví dụ như visa tài năng Global Talent là gì, yêu cầu của chương trình ra sao, ai là đối tượng của chương trình, cũng như những lợi ích đặc biệt nào. Và không để cho quý vị chờ lâu hơn nữa thì chúng ta sẽ bắt đầu chương trình ngày hôm nay. Hi Ruobing, the stage is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
It's good from my side.
Okay, great. Let me just go to the screen. Okay. So firstly, thank you, Annie, for organizing this event. And Min and I have had the opportunity to work with Prospero Consulting for over the last couple of years, and helping quite a lot of clients in inbound migration into Australia. So we've worked together for skilled migration, employer visas, business migration, as well as the most current visa, or the newest visa, which is the Distinguished Talent Visa under the Global Talent Independent Program. So today, Prospero has very kindly organized this event, so we can have the opportunity to introduce to you about this very new program, and the benefit and the features of this program, and how you can potentially become an Australian permanent resident through the Distinguished Talent Program in a very, very short time frame. So this presentation will be between me and my colleague Min. I'll talk I'll talk about some parts of the presentation, and then Min will also discuss the various aspects of the program. And then once we've had our overview, we will present some case studies to you. And then after that, if you've got any questions, you can ask us and we'll be happy to answer them for you. Okay, so who is ASHTON Legal? ASHTON Legal is a Sydney-based law firm. So I am a legal practitioner, licensed to work in law in New South Wales, as well as admitted to the High Court of Australia. So I specialize in migration, Australian inbound migration. So as I mentioned before, we do all sorts of Australian visas, including business migration, general skilled migration, and employer nominated migration, as well as family migration as well. And in addition to immigration, we also assist when it comes to a business setup, new business structure, business acquisition, shareholder agreement, and those area of law. So we can do more than just immigration. We can branch into the business law aspect, which is very closely connected with business migration. Just a very quick introduction about myself. I have a background in accounting and finance before I became a legal practitioner. And so I
interrupt you. Could you put your slide in full screen? You click the display.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is this better?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. So I have a legal practicing certificate to practice in the High Court of Australia and the Supreme Court of New South Wales. As you probably know, in Australia, we do have to be duly registered, so I'm also a registered migration agent. Now, in terms of migration law, I have worked in all the different areas that I've mentioned before, and also I have a very diverse client base. So I don't work, as you can probably tell, I'm originally from China, but my clients are not only Chinese clients. So I've got clients from Europe, I've got clients from America, as well as a lot of clients from Vietnam, South Africa as well. Okay, Minh will talk a bit about herself.
Thank you, Robin. Hi, everyone. My name is Minh Nguyen. So just a little bit about my background. I was born in Vietnam, in Ho Chi Minh City, but my whole family migrated over to Australia when I was about 5 years old. So I pretty much grew up in Sydney, and that was a long time ago since we migrated. But so in terms of my professional career, I used to work for the department back in 2012 as a APS5 team leader in the Sydney Service Centre. And around about 2006, I decided to leave the Department of Home Affairs and register as a registered migration agent. So I've been practicing in the industry since 2016. I've been working with Robin. We met in 2016 as well, and we work closely together in terms of the Business Innovation Investor Program, Employer Nomination, General Skilled Migration, and more recently the Global Talent Independent Visa Program. I can speak both English and Vietnamese, although some might say my Vietnamese is a little bit not fluent, but I'm getting there. When I was 5, my grandparents looked after us when my parents went to work. So if I didn't speak Vietnamese, I didn't get any food. So that's try to keep up with my Vietnamese heritage. We also have another team member within ASHTON Legal, which is Lachlan Richards.
Yes, so Lachlan is based in Adelaide. He has retired, but prior to that, he's a very senior lawyer for employment relations, as well as for migration as well. He lectures for migration agents through the Migration Institute of Australia. His expertise is in AAT, the Administrative Appeals Tribunal, as well as judicial review. His other expertise is in health waivers. So for some of the visas, even if the visa applicant has a health condition, you will still be able to get the visa despite the fact that you're going to incur quite significant costs to the Australian government. So he is a very well-known expert in this area. And we work with him quite closely. He is an advisor for us, to ASHTON Legal. And in terms of health conditions, one of the very, very common health issues that many Vietnamese clients have are hepatitis B. So we have a lot of experience in securing visa for clients who has this hepatitis B issue, but still be able to either get the visa through health waiver, or we are able to demonstrate to the immigration case officer that the hepatitis B does not become a health issue for the visa applicant. So that's an area that we work very closely with Lachlan, and his experience in tribunal matters as well as judicial reviews also. We can also rely on him and for those areas of expertise. So in terms of the service charter, so for Ashton Legal, this is our philosophy. How do we deal with clients? How do we do the best for our clients? Because we believe, you know, when we do the best for our clients, we can actually achieve a win-win situation for ourselves. By doing the best for the clients, we achieve the best outcome for our firm as well. So regardless of what type of visa we are working on, whether it's a multimillionaire from Vietnam, or whether it's you know, scientist from Germany, or whether that's you know, very successful business person from Vietnam or China, we all adhere to the same set of principles when we work for the clients. So firstly, we look at the client circumstances very closely, and then we evaluate and give the client the most the honest and very transparent assessment. Through the detailed analysis of the client's circumstances, we are able to design the most effective and appropriate visa strategy. So sometimes the client comes to us and say, you know, I think this is a good visa I wanted to go for, but because of our knowledge and our experience, we can identify a better option for the client. So this is something Minh will talk to you later. An example, one of the clients has come to Minh and say that they wanted to look at the state-nominated 190 visa, but Minh is able to, you know, look at all the different circumstances, the client's achievement, and say to the client, you probably should apply for this global talent visa, which you know, we've identified as the best and the most appropriate visa for the client. The next thing we focus very much on is very open and very prompt communication with the client. So by that, I mean, if there is any potential issue, we tell the client upfront. And being very prompt means we usually respond to client very quickly. Sometimes when you work for a large law firm, you know, sometimes there are lots of hierarchies. You cannot communicate with the client directly. But for us, we are very flat and we're very prompt in terms of communicating with the clients. Clients have questions to us, we work for the client. We don't say, okay, it's business hours, we only answer your questions with business hours. Okay, so whenever there's questions, we do our best to answer your questions straight away. Fixed fees. For some law firm, most of the law firms, they still work in a traditional way, which is they charge by the hour. But for us, for immigration matters, we charge it on a fixed fee basis. Lastly, we collaborate with the stakeholders to achieve a win-win situation. So we work with Prospero. They're our partner for the Vietnamese market for all sorts of visas. And we work very closely so they know how we work and we know how they work. And we work together because our way of operating is very similar, and there is synergy between the two parties. So Minh will then now quickly talk to you about just to give you an introduction of the Global Talent Independent Program.
Thank you, Robin. So what is the Global Talent Independent Program? So it's a very new visa stream under the Distinguished Talent visa. So for onshore, it is the subclass 858, and offshore, it's the subclass 124. So the GTI program was only took off really in November 2019, and the idea was to streamline and priority process the visa pathway under the Distinguished Talent subclasses. It is targeted at highly skilled, highly professional, talented individuals worldwide who are at the top of their field in key industry sectors. So the government formulated a list of 7 key industry sectors, but this list isn't exhaustive. It is just the top 7 industries so that the distinguished talented individuals can then contribute back to growing the Australian economy within these sectors. And the idea is that they contribute to the innovation of technology, in sectors such as agricultural technology, space and advanced manufacturing, financial technology, energy and mining technology, cybersecurity, medical technologies and pharmaceuticals, quantum information, advanced digital data, and ICT. So that these individuals would then bring their skills, their knowledge, their experiences, and create innovation and create more jobs for the domestic market, and also ensure that the Australian economy becomes competitive within the innovation and technology sectors. There is allocated per annum a quota of 5,000 places to be granted for the Distinguished Talent Visas, and specifically for the Global Talent Independent Stream. When Robin and I received a Freedom of Information request, I think there was only something with like less than 5 visa grants in the program year for 2018-2019. And that quota we've been assured will be maintained for the next program year in 2020 to 2021. So at present, I don't think that quota has been filled or is at capacity at all, which means that for people who may be eligible, it is less competitive than other visa options like the skilled migration pathway or employer sponsored, which has a lot of conditions and obligations attached to it. We'll go through in a bit more details what the requirements are in a second, but essentially there are 6 global talent officers that are placed and positioned strategically around the world. Their role is to recruit these highly skilled professionals in the key sectors. So there's 6 GTO offices in Berlin, in Dubai, Santiago, Singapore, Shanghai, and Washington, DC. They are focused at present on recruiting not just professionals who are already in their field, but also highly performing PhD students, particularly PhD students who are within the 6 months of completing their PhD, who also have a high record of international achievement in the key industry sectors that we spoke about earlier. So one other aspect is that eligible candidates also require the endorsement or the nomination of an Australian citizen or permanent resident or an Australian organisation with a national reputation in the same field as the candidate. So someone who can basically vouch for the individual's high performance, their ability to contribute to the key sector and the innovation and technology that the Australian government is looking into growing and then into also building the Australian economy. In terms of the requirements, so Robin will go through that with you.
So this is a very quick overview of how the program is different from some of the other visas that are available. So for most of the skilled migrations, you would have to have an English result. Most of the skilled visas, professional skilled visas, requires a minimum of IELTS 6 in each and every component. For this visa, there's no requirement for English. The reason being, this Global Talent Independent Program sit within the Distinguished Talent Visa Program. The Distinguished Talent Visa Programs also encompass actors and musicians and other type of distinguished talent. So for that, there's no English language requirement. The only English language requirement that is relevant is if the applicant, whether it's the main applicant or the secondary applicant, does not have 4.5 average in IELTS, it attracts an extra government fee. But in terms of whether you will fail to meet the visa requirement if you don't have IELTS result, no, there isn't. And most of the candidate, particularly the onshore candidate who are doing the PhD, will be able to satisfy the English proficiency requirement by having studied a PhD in Australia. There's also no skills assessment requirement. So because you probably know most of the skilled migration, you have to go through a skilled assessment, whether it's through VET-Assess or the Australian Computing Society or other professional bodies. But for this visa, there's no requirement for skills assessment. Thirdly, it is a one-step process. You apply to the federal government. It's unlike state-nominated 190 visa, unlike 491 visas, where you have to be nominated by a state government. For this visa, we only would deal with a federal government. So there's no separate, a middle person you have to go through. Similarly with the Global Talent visa, because it's not employer nominated, you don't have to be sponsored by a business. So that also makes the process a lot more streamlined. You don't have to, there's no business that have to meet the revenue requirements. There's no business that have to nominate a position, etc. It's just the visa applicant is highly qualified in a particular sector, and we are putting them forward to the government for this 858 for onshore applicant. There's also no investment requirement for most of the business from all of the business migration applicants. You have to invest a significant amount of money, but for this global talent visa, there's no such requirement. There's no points test, meaning, so when it comes to the points test, for example, people are doing accounting, people are doing nursing, it means the higher the points, the more likely that they will get a visa. So it depends on your age. The older you are, the less points you get. If your English is only 6, you don't get any points. Work experience as well. But for this visa, there's no points test. So, as long as you meet the requirement, which we'll talk about later, doesn't say the younger is better, doesn't say the better English will give you extra points. Last thing is you can also apply before you graduate. So as Min mentioned before, as long as you are within 6 months of graduation of your PhD, you are eligible to put forward a visa application. So you might even get permanent residency before you graduate. So that is very attractive. What is required for this visa? Firstly, the visa applicant has to be normally under the age of 55 unless there are exceptional circumstances. So if you are over the age of 55, if we can present exceptional circumstances, you are still eligible. But the general requirement is you have to be under 55. You have to have a good earning prospect. So one of the requirements for priority processing is that the applicant has an earning level that is equivalent to the high income, fair work, high income threshold. This does not mean you have to be earning that much now. What it means is if you get the visa in the nominated industry, we have to show immigration that you have the potential to earn at least $150,000 a year. And this is for us to find the relevant information for you to present to the department. And the next one is preferably the candidate need to have a PhD, a Master of Research in the key targeted sectors, particularly for candidates who are in Australia who are currently studying. And the last thing Min also mentioned to you briefly, all these visas must be nominated by an Australian citizen or permanent resident who are also at that level, at the national level. So if you are doing a PhD course or Master of Research, Master by Research, your professors usually would be qualified to make a nomination for you. What they would need to do is to say they recognize your international achievement in terms of the research outcome. Secondly, they wanted to say that you are currently quite prominent in the area. So your research outcome has to be recent. It cannot be, 3 or 4 years ago, but because you're doing a PhD, so this should be able to be achieved quite easily. Thirdly, they also need to attest to the fact that you will be able to establish yourself in Australia and make contribution in the area that you've been nominated in. So that is the main criteria, I guess, for this visa, and what is not required, thus the attractiveness of this visa. Now, Minh will go through some of the advantages of this program with you now.
Thank you. So some of the advantages of the GTI program is that it is quite a prestigious status, because the government is actively recruiting highly skilled professionals, people of distinguished talent, to offer them direct permanent residency, but also offer them a super quick way of obtaining that PR without necessarily having to jump through all the hoops of getting skills assessment, doing your English, getting employer sponsored, etc. So it is quite a prestigious status through the GTI program. Once you are granted the Distinguished Talent Visa under GTI, there are a lot of networking opportunities as well. So we are members of a group that is run by highly skilled professionals as well as government officials and global talent officers. It's called the Australian Global Talent Association. Within this group, there are other like-minded people within the same sectors, some within different sectors, that can also help you to build your career. And it is a great networking opportunity to, if you in the future are looking at establishing your own business, these people will be available to provide you with more information, with key resources, that kind of assistance to help you along the way with your career progression. There's also flexibility within the program. So the 7 key industry sectors aren't the only key industry sectors. Austrade, for example, has also identified that education technology is one of the growing sectors that will definitely, given the current context, be a key area that needs to be developed now and in the future. We also have a current client who falls within the education technology sector, and we will be able to present to the government and the GTO to say that this is a key growth industry and that this person satisfies the requirement to be granted the direct PR through the GTI program. As I said, it is a super fast priority processed program. We will give you some case studies from the time that we signed a client up to when the visa is actually granted. Robin will go through with you just how quick this visa can be granted, and it was just astonishing, because just getting direct PR under less than 2-3 months, it's just unheard of within the migration industry. But it just goes to show that the government is very serious about attracting the highly skilled professionals, and there is a lot of flexibility in the criteria to grant it quite quickly as well. It is a one-stop permanent residency. There are no, unlike the 491 and 191 visa pathway under general skilled migration, there's no provisional period. There's no follow-up monitoring like the 491, where you have to ensure or make sure that you report to the state that you are currently still living in the state or the region that nominated you, that you're earning a particular salary. So there's none of that monitoring period. Once you are granted the 858 or 124 visa, that's it. You don't have to report back to the department. You don't have to show further evidence that you've actually earned $150,000 per annum. Once you meet the criteria, you've met the criteria, so they don't do any post-visa grant follow-up. And which means that because of all the benefits and because of all the attractiveness of the program, it is only going to be, the current planning is only going to go forward until the 30th of June 2021, which essentially only gives us about another 13 months to explore the possibility of achieving PR for perhaps maybe for some of you who are in attendance today, but to also try and broaden the horizons to try and recruit people who might be eligible for this visa. Later I'll go through with you how it's actually applied in terms of why is this a better option than, say, the skilled visa option. But I think we'll go through all the information first and then go through the case studies just at the end.
Okay, in terms of the workflow, the initial step is after this webinar, if you think it is of interest to you, then you can please talk to Prospero and then we can organize initial consultation. Once we've done some initial assessment and look at the various visa options and see if once we identify the GTI is the most appropriate visa for you, or it's possible that we look at maybe GTI isn't, what other visas are possible, then we engage you, once we've decided the best pathway for you, we engage, prepare an engagement, and then once we're fully engaged, then we move on to the next stage, which is we will provide you with a document checklist, go through the document checklist with you, make sure that the documents that you've provided would meet the requirement for us to present an expression of interest to the Department of Home Affairs for the GTI program. Once they've received the expression of interest, the GTO, the Global Talent Officers, they will be reviewing the documents that we've submitted, mainly about your ability to earn more than 150K a year, as well as evidence of your international achievement and evidence of your expertise in the area of that the government has identified. But as Min has mentioned before, there is flexibility. So the government said very specifically, we have identified 7 key industries, but maybe there are other sectors that you want to bring forward. Please feel free to do so. So that's something that we can do as well. So not going to say, okay, because this is not on one of those 7 industry sectors, then we can't do it for you. I think some of the PhD studies might not be eligible. For example, if you're doing a linguistics course, a PhD in linguistics, that might not be suitable under the GTI. But maybe there are particulars of the PhD that you're doing that you might not think you would qualify. Then we can have an assessment and see whether there's any angle we can address it and then put the case forward. So once the GTO has assessed an expression of interest, when she or he is satisfied that you meet the requirement for fast priority processing, they will give us a unique identifier. Given the unique identifier, there are 2 significance of the unique identifier. The first thing is the GTO has already assessed your application and agrees that you are eligible for this GTI program. Otherwise, they would not give you the unique identifier. So with that, it gives us the confidence that you are most likely, 70–80% you'll get the visa. No, not a problem. The second significance of this unique identifier is once you're given the unique identifier, all the applications will be fast-tracked. So most of the 124 visas or 858 visas, I mentioned to you before, it also covers musicians or it covers actors or actresses or sports people. Most of these visas will take about 12 months to process. If you are given a unique identifier, the visas are then fast-tracked and you can potentially get a visa within a couple of days, permanent residency, okay? So that's why it is important to prepare very high quality, convincing application for the expression of interest. So we receive an invitation together with the unique identifier. We will then prepare the visa application. Once we've prepared the visa application, we draft a visa application form We'll also do a brief submission addressing all the visa criteria, visa grant criteria. Once we've done that, we will send that to you as the visa applicant for you to double check everything is correct. All the answers you have given in the visa application is accurate. Once we have your confirmation, we'll submit the application. Here, after we submit the application, we will guide you through health checks, as well as we will liaise with the government if there's any follow-up questions. Okay, so that's the process of the engagement, or the from the initial consultation to through all the way through to you getting the visa. We will be working with you, assisting you through along the way. I mean, we'll talk to you quickly about the fees and charges, the government fees and charges.
Yeah, so as a primary applicant, the visa application charge is $4,110. If you have any dependent family members, so if you have a dependent spouse, anyone who is over the age of 18 pays an additional $2,055. Dependent applicants under the age of 18 is $1,030. Now, there is a second instalment for anyone who is, any applicant, sorry, who is over 18 years of age and who cannot provide evidence of having functional English. Functional English is an overall 4.5 or 4. I think 4.5. Now, it's not a requirement that they have to sit the English test, but you do have to pay a second instalment of close to $5,000, so $4,890 for anyone over the age of 18 who do not have functional English. Other third-party fees and charges include the cost of health examinations, translation of documents, and also police checks.
Okay, just to quickly run you through some of the case studies. So we've got, for these case studies, the information here includes a couple of visas that have been granted, a couple of visas that are being processed, and then Min will also talk to you about a couple of visas that we are in the consultation and initial stage. So one of the visa granted was for a German national. That was an offshore client. That happened before the COVID-19 started. So that German national has a master's degree, coursework only, and it's a finance degree. And the person's specialty is fintech, financial technology. So what I wanted to highlight to you here is the GTI program is flexible. So for 190, 189 visas, they're very prescriptive. So the government says you have to have, certain points. You have to have it. If you don't have the points, you can't get invited, or you can't English, you don't meet certain requirement, then you can't be eligible. For the GTI, because these, it says that we prefer the applicants to have a PhD or master's by research, but because these are not legislated, it gives the department flexibility. So when there is a very high quality client, the government can say, okay, you don't have to have a PhD, or you don't have to have a master's degree by research. So for this client, there's no master's degree by research, master's degree by coursework, still qualifies. We submitted the expression of interest on the 25th of January. We received the invitation on the 30th of January. Visa application was submitted on the 7th of February. The visa was granted on the 6th of March. So from the time we submitted the EOI to the time the visa was granted, it only took about 1 month and 12 days. The second one is a French national. The client is onshore, and the client has completed a PhD in medical science. And the client was on a 485 visa. For this client, we submitted the visa application. I think we engaged the client on the 1st of March, submitted the EOI on the 5th of March. and the permanent visa was granted on the 12th of March. So it was very, very fast. It only took 7 days. The next 2 visas are currently being processed. Both are Chinese nationals, both are in the fintech industry. So the first client is did his bachelor degree in Australia in business, and then went back to China to do his own business, and he was very successful and set up a company, and his area of expertise is fintech. For this client, the EOI was submitted on the 10th of April, received the invitation on the 24th. The application was submitted on the 25th of April, and we received the request for health and police checks on the 29th of April. So this client is offshore. The third one is offshore. The fourth one, another Chinese client who's onshore. This client is actually a holder of a business investor visa, 188. He is very heavily involved in the financial technology industry, also in Australia. So once this visa has come out, I talked to them about the possibility of a permanent visa without having to go through the provisional visa stage on the 188. And the client, was very excited, and we put the application in. The application EOI was submitted on the 28th of February. We received an invitation with the unique identifier on the 3rd of March, and the visa application was submitted on the 14th of April, because we have to organize the various police checks, which took some time. Once the application was submitted, we received a request for health examination on 22nd of April. So for this client, because it's onshore, it's going to be a very quick process application. Because of COVID, the offshore applications are a bit slow to process, even if when they have the unique identifier. They will still be fast processed, but it will not be as fast as before. But when you are onshore, the COVID would not impact you, and the visa is still being processed very quickly. I will just to show you quickly what I discussed before of the. I'll just show you the visa grant. Can you see this? Can you see the PDF?
No, I can only see the image on the slide.
Okay, you can't see that PDF. Okay, how about you talk about would you like to talk about?
Yep.
Oh, no.
So just last week, I consulted a client who initially we were talking about the eligibility for the 189 independent skilled visa and the 190 state nominated skilled visa. So this person, his occupation is as a registered medical practitioner, so general practitioner, sorry. Has the skills assessment. His potential point score was about 85 and 90 with state nomination. However, the last the last round of invitations for the 189, the minimum point score was 95. So even though he was a very good candidate with the highest possible points for age, qualification, his onshore work experience, his English was superior, he still wouldn't meet the minimum point score for the independent visa. And because he's currently located in New South Wales, the New South Wales state government isn't sponsoring general practitioners. So there were a few hurdles that he would have had to overcome, and the wait time and the uncertainty of whether or not he would be able to receive the invitation, it wasn't a good visa option for him, even though he was completely eligible. There were just one few too many obstacles. So we had discussed his work in the medical technology industry. So because he had completed his studies here in Australia, he is currently researching medical diagnostic devices in patients who have diabetes and are suffering from multi-vessel disease. So the technology that he was working on and researching would actually help to detect any cardiovascular diseases without intrusive surgical procedures. And it is quite innovative in terms of what it contributes within the medical tech industry. We talked about his current salary. Because he's employed by Westmead Hospital, his current salary, well, he has the potential to earn $150,000 per annum. And because he has been conducting this research, he also has the endorsement of a university professor, which he works closely with, who also has a national reputation with the cardiovascular department at Liverpool Hospital. So after talking through the GTI program, we found that this was the best possible option for him and he met the requirements. The only hurdle, I suppose, is to bring on board the support of the professor, which the next day he spoke to his professor and had no problems getting the support and endorsement, which means that now he would meet the GTI program. And instead of waiting, you know, he's already waited 3 months for an invitation, instead of waiting another 3, 6, 9 months, and then his current visa expires without getting an invitation for the skilled program, he could potentially receive an invitation for the GTI and become a permanent resident, I'd say within the next 3 to 6 months. So there's a level of certainty that the GTI program offers if you are able to meet all the requirements. And if there are grey areas or areas where we need to work on, we will work closely with you. For example, in terms of finding the market research for your salary potential, or even being able to support you to try and find a nominator that is willing to endorse you and the work that you do.
Yes. So in addition to the case that Min has presented to you, I have got a client who's come to me. He designs games. So one of the areas, even though it's not explicit in the list of 7 key industries, we can drill it down, and you know, it's about artificial intelligence. It is about immersive creation. So those are the areas that we are going to be putting forward to the department. So even if the area is not directly identified, we can still look at it, and it's our job to push your case forward with the department. Min, can you see the PDF? Okay. So this is, I just give you a couple of PDF documents that has been redacted for privacy reasons. But so for example, for this one is the one that I discussed earlier, the German candidate, the German visa holder. We received the invitation on the 7th of March. So highlight to you, thank you for expressing an interest in the GTI program. Based on the information you've provided, the department is pleased to consider you for priority processing under the GTI program. As part of the online lodgement, you will need to reference your Global Talent Unique Identifier. Your Global Talent Unique Identifier is this. So with this unique identifier, it enables us to get priority processing. The application was lodged on the 9th of March. We received your distinguished talent. Oh, sorry, this is the onshore applicants. So the French guy. So received your application on the 9th of March. You have been identified under the Global Talent Program. So that was received. And on the 12th of March, we have granted you a distinguished talent 858 visa on the 12th of March. Again, just to confirm that the person was identified under the Global Talent Program. So this is the onshore applicant. The visa is, so this is the visa grant, but all these visas, the 858 visa is a permanent visa. It's valid for 5 years. and that's the same as any other permanent resident visa. The next one is the offshore client. So for this client, received the nomination on the 30th of January. The same here. Thank you for your expression of interest. We are pleased to confirm or consider you for priority processing. Here is your identifier. So that's also the same, that we received the invitation towards the end of January. We lodged the application towards the end of February. Acknowledgement of a valid visa application. This one was for the partner, for the wife. But the visa application was lodged towards the end of February, 27th of February. And then on the 6th of March, we've granted you a distinguished talent visa 124, which means that the client was offshore. And this one was also, it only took a couple of weeks for the visa to be granted. And that was also confirmed as a GTI 124 visa. So this just gives you an example of, firstly, it gives you an example of some of the visa grants we've achieved. Secondly, it gives you a time frame. You can see how long we received, we received the EOI invitation under the EOI. We were given unique identifier. We lodged the visa application very swiftly, and the visa approval comes through very quickly as well. So here, it's a visa granted on the 6th of March 2020, and it's valid for 5 years. And it's an indefinite visa, so it's a permanent visa. Yeah, this is the German client. So I think that's all the slides. I can see that there's some questions that we've received.
Yeah, we can go through the Q&A.
Yeah.
So the first question: what documents should I prepare for pre-assessment? Pre-assessment in terms of preparing for the consultation with us. Generally, a lot of our clients send through a very detailed CV, and that includes all the details of their education history. So if you've done bachelor, master's, PhD, what was your PhD subject in? What was your research specifically in? Have you published, made any national, international publications within that sector? And also your employment history. So what have you been doing? Where have you been working? What are the kind of skills have you been applying through your study? And then also they provide a list of the, as I said, detailed publications, if they've participated in any international or national conferences, the time period for that as well, and their references. So
Yeah.
this,
So,
I suppose the references is for us to see whether or not there's a potential to get in contact with the referees and see whether or not they are or they meet the requirements to provide you with the endorsement. And if they do, then we will then guide you through the process of what's required for that endorsement and nomination, and then help the nominator draft the relevant application form. But that's, yeah, just a very detailed CV for our initial consultation. And that way we can give you an idea as to, yes, you can qualify, or whether there's other pathways that are more suitable.
the second one is, does the program require a certain number of years of work experience? No, it doesn't. And there's no nomination per se. There's no application to the federal government for nomination. It's purely based on your expertise or international achievement in the area that is nominated, targeted sectors. We also wanted to look at whether your research has been commercialized or whether you have received or the research project that you were working on, supervised by your professor, whether that has received any government funding, and that is going to be helpful. But there's no requirement. You have to be, having done research for so many number of years, and there's no work experience per se for this visa.
Okay. Next question, how do I know the 5,000 slot is full for this year? And does this program have a quota for each nationality? No, there's no limitation as to how many can be granted for each country. And this program year, I don't think it's been filled yet. It's very far off from being filled. As I mentioned earlier, the GTI, the introduction of the GTI program itself was only in November 2019. So it's only been operating for 6 months. And I don't think there's been a lot of visa grants, not because there's been visa refusals, but because I don't think there has been a lot of applicants who meet the criteria, or even applicants that know about the GTI program to be then eligible to apply for it. Would you agree, Robin?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think the quota's been filled.
Yeah. Okay, do I have to find an endorsement by an Australian citizen or organisation by myself, or will us? It depends on what you have been doing. If you have been, if you are a PhD student, you would have a supervisor who has worked with you, who knows you, and that person is the best person to nominate you. So for the French guy that I have secured visa for, the professor is very happy to provide a letter of confirmation. For the client that I'm working for now, who is seeking, who submitted the visa application already in the fintech industry, the CEO of an Australian company very happily provided a very detailed support letter, which we, help them to prepare. But so in short, if you have someone who is willing to nominate you, it's the best, because that person knows you. We can try to find someone for you, but then we will have to introduce you to them, and they'll have to review your work. It really depends on what you have been doing. So I guess that's the best way I can answer the question for you. For Min, the client that has just seen her, for example, the medical practitioner, Min just said, he is doing research for medical devices, or diagnostic devices, and he's working with a very famous, or an Australian professor or doctor in the same area, and that person, it's much easier, much more convincing when they provide the endorsement than if you found someone that they don't even know the person and they haven't worked together. It's less convincing. Yeah?
Next question, vợ và con tôi có cần thi bằng cấp gì để tăng thêm cơ hội được mời không? So does my wife and child have to have any qualifications in order to increase the chance of invitation? No, so dependent applicants don't have any additional requirements other than the proof of relationship and also the evidence of functional English. But even if they don't have evidence of functional English, you can pay the second instalment charge of $4,890. So in terms of what value can your wife and kids add to the potential of receiving an invitation, it doesn't work like the skilled migration points test. You don't get higher points or higher priority if your partner has superior English or a skills assessment. There's no additional criteria with the GTI program for dependent applicants.
Okay, next one is about how to prove the income over 150K. Do I no. So if you are currently earning 150K, perfect, provide we need to see the tax returns or the employment contract. But you don't have to. Most of our clients, except for the very wealthy client who's on the who's a holder of the 188 who can show that, and the other clients, the French guy who we got the visa for as a research assistant at the university, his current salary was 85K a year, but we are able to demonstrate if he gets the visa, he will be able to, because we will do market research. We will look at what market salary is for someone who has a PhD in the area of medical technology or medical science. And then that is enough. So it's about earning potential. It doesn't have to be the person has been earning that much. So I hope that answers the question. Your current salary does not have to be over 150K.
Next question. I just graduated from a Master of IT and Systems by coursework from UTAS. I'm now on a 485 visa and living in Tasmania. Am I eligible to apply for the visa? And how much are the agent fees? In terms of doing a Master's of coursework, so I have a similar client who has completed his Master of IT, but you have to remember the GTI program is targeted at high-performing, highly skilled and talented individuals who are contributing to the key industry sectors, either through their research that's recognised internationally, nationally and internationally, or through their employment that they're currently working within that industry and working on something that is contributing to that sector. So, for example, with this client, has a Master of IT by coursework. He is a Russian national. He's currently working for Compass Education, which is an Australian company specialising in education technology in terms of online school management and school learning and assessment platforms. So given the current COVID-19 and coronavirus and the need for students to be learning at home and also applying innovative technology to maximize the learning platform, he is actually working on applications that are helping within that sector. So Austrade has identified that the education technology sector is going to grow exponentially, considering everything that's happened, and that we do need highly talented individuals who can contribute to the economy through this sector. So just completing a Master of IT and Systems by coursework may not necessarily meet the GTI program, but if you are currently working in a sector, a key industry sector that applies the knowledge that you've obtained from your Masters, that you can show that there is some level of international achievement. So this Russian national, again, the company that he works for, their application is not just applied in New South Wales, Victoria, it's applied nationally in WA, in Queensland, South Australia, but also internationally. It's applied in Canada and in Ireland. His other international achievements is the international outlook of his education. So he completed his bachelor in Russia and another master's by coursework in the UK, and then came to Australia to do the Master of IT on a scholarship. So in that situation, there is leeway for us to argue that this person does meet the GTI program, but I think we would need to know a little bit more about your situation to determine or not whether it's the best program for you. In terms of the fees, it's on a case-by-case basis. Some cases we charge a bit more because we need to become involved in finding the nominator, the most suitable nominator for you, and that this person or this organisation is also of a national repute and in the same sector. So I think if you want to book in with Annie from Prospero after the webinar, just have a chat to her and we can work something out.
Okay, next question. I saw that one of the requirements of this visa is that the applicant has an international recognized record of achievement, exceptional, outstanding achievement, but I am an ordinary person. Well, we are all ordinary people. My client who has completed a PhD in medical science, Min's client who has completed a doctor's degree, like a medicine degree, that person is not a PhD, right? From the University of Western Sydney. They're still ordinary people. We're not, I mean, obviously the Distinguished Talent Visa can cater for people who are Nobel Prize winners, but the GTI program, or I think our audience, including you, including the people that I have worked on and secure the GTI for, they are ordinary people. They're not, the #1 person in this area in the world. How can I meet this requirement if you're just an ordinary person? As I said before, I mean, immigration is targeting PhD students. Immigration is targeting master by research in those targeted areas. So, even though you might still consider yourself to be an ordinary person, if you can be in, have a PhD, have a research degree in these area, and even if you might not have a research degree, but only have a coursework degree, but some people might not, say IT, there are things that you can learn, or you can acquire the skills outside of the course. Maybe some languages that you are using that is, not other people can use. I guess that's where your uniqueness comes in. So each case is different. Yes, I know that the Distinguished Talent Visa initially, as I mentioned before, it can be for musicians, it can be for sports people, it can be for people in every area. It can it has to be internationally recognized, exceptional, outstanding. But when it comes to the GTI program, there's a level of flexibility that we are seeing the department is affording to the visa applicant. They actually want to have highly skilled people to come to Australia. And that's why they've set a target of 5,000 quota a year. If they are only targeting extraordinary people, I don't think they need to set aside 5,000, the quota for 5,000.
Next question, I'm studying mathematical science in the field of applied statistics in medicine. Does my study associated with the key industry data science? Data science is quite broad. So my question would then be, how is the degree specifically applied to, so the most relevant sector then would be, what do you say, Robin, digital technology in terms of data analytics and asset management?
I think it's, I think data science applied to medicine, I think it's it would fit within the key industry. You can also cross two different targeted sectors. So I don't know what level course you're doing, whether it's bachelor's or whether it's master's, but it really depends. And you are studying in this area, but if there's any publications, it has to be something that not everyone in your course is doing. You have to be, a professor or a lecturer is willing to put their hands up and then say, you are actually doing really well. You are, doing something in addition or different from your peers, what they are doing. But, applied statistics in medicine or pharmaceuticals can definitely be an area in terms of data science, but it just depends on the level of your achievement. PhD obviously is a great achievement. Not many people can do PhD, so not many people can do research degree. So the area is fine, but the level of expertise, or that's something we need to look at.
Yeah, Ruobing. It's good in study PhD.
Okay, so PhD, yes. Then I'm pretty sure. So you're doing PhD. I'm pretty sure you qualify. But we do need to have a look at the, as I mentioned before, the publications, as well as if you're doing any research, how are the research outcome? How can it be applied to contribute to directly contribute to the industry sector? How can it be commercialized? But those are the things that we will be putting forward to the department in the EOI. Yeah, okay, we can discuss in more detail. So I think in this forum, what we will do is we'll answer some general questions that will be applicable to all the potential applicants. But if there are specific questions, we can help you through a one-on-one discussion. But yeah, definitely, I mean, PhD, you do meet the, you do fit in with the criteria or the parameters for this visa.
Next question, how many publications at least do you think we need to apply for the visa? It's not so much about the number of publications, it's more about if those publications contribute to your international achievement. So this general practitioner that I consulted last week, he's only got one publication, but that publication is a key area of research in the medtech industry, and it's also published in 2019 in the International Journal of Cardiovascular Technology. And he's also presented in Barcelona, Spain, an abstract of that research to pretty much put the research and the ideas out there within the medical industry sector, and for other peers to recognise that it is something that is being worked on and worked on here in Australia as well. Other candidates that we've had might have had more publications, but there isn't really a minimum number that you have to have, so long as we can show that these publications have a international reputation and that you are known for your outstanding achievement in your field of study, in your field of research.
I think with all the candidates that we have, and with this type of visas, there's no hard and fast rule in terms of, it doesn't say, comparing to say business migration visa, it says, or business, you have to have a business turnover of $1 million a year for at least 2 years. Then these are hard and fast. If you meet the requirement, you meet the requirement. But for these visas, it's quite subjective, and it is quite, flexible. It's for us working with you, working with your nominator, how to present your case to the case officer. Once they've received it, they are going to say, well, we want to give this visa to this person. And the case officers that we've been dealing with, the GTO, the Global Talent Officers, they are quite receptive, they're quite willing to help, different from other so the Department of Home Affairs, it's a huge government bureaucracy, and there are lots of different teams working in there. And the GTOs that Minh and I have found, they're very approachable. We talk to them, they want to give the visa out. Yeah, they want, because that's their kind of project, that they want it to succeed. They want it to be able to see, lots of applicants, high qualified applicants are coming through. So it is for us to present your case. There's no hard and fast rules. They don't say in the legislative criteria, there's nothing to say, oh, if you have one publication every year for the last 5 years, then you'll be able to meet the requirement. No, there's nothing like it. There's no requirement like that.
Next question, you did mention about the police checks. How long will it take in Australia? Regarding Vietnamese police check, it seems to be made online, but I've got no experience about it. Do you have any advice? With the Australian Federal Police check, it is done online, but it's done quite quickly. Once it's lodged, the AFP will send you a notification that it's been processed and that it will be sent within 5 to 10 business days. So AFP, give or take 2 weeks. With the Vietnamese police checks, Prospero has an office in Vietnam, and they've been able to help us with onshore and offshore clients to obtain the criminal police check number 2. If you're doing it on your own, I'm not too sure, but from feedback from other clients, it seems to be a little bit harder if you are over in Australia and you're applying for it to retrieve it in Vietnam. I think you have to give authority over to a family member to go to the local district police station to get that approved and sent out to your relative or your family member. Annie, do you have any, you guys can provide the service in terms of police checks?
Hi chị Minh, thì đối với cái câu hỏi mà về police check của Việt Nam là cái số 2 á, thì Prospero sẽ hỗ trợ cho khách hàng về việc điền đơn hoặc là đăng ký để mà lấy được. Thì trung bình về cái thời gian trung bình mà được cấp á, thì cái police search số 2 trung bình là khoảng 15 ngày làm việc thì lại sẽ có, mà vẫn có những cái dịch vụ để mà làm nhanh. Nếu mà hồ sơ của anh chị cần nhanh trong vòng 1 tuần hoặc là 3-4 ngày đó, nhanh hơn nữa thì vẫn có thể hỗ trợ được.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Em. So Annie's just said that Prospero Consulting does facilitate the application of the criminal police check number 2 in Vietnam. I think there's different priority processing. So if a client requires it within 5 days, then they just pay a higher fee to facilitate that priority. But generally, it takes about 15 days for the Vietnamese police check to come through, which is good, like the AFP. That seems to be all in the Q&A section. I think if there's any participants who have questions about what was presented today, we're more than happy to provide you with a quick one-on-one consult to see whether you're eligible for the GTI program. If you have general questions, please email them through to either Prospero Consulting or to myself and Robin. And yeah, we'll be able to, we're happy to answer them for you. There we go. So any questions, concerns, please email info@prospero-consulting.com. There's also the contact number. And if you want to follow Prospero on Facebook, there's the Facebook link. But thank you very much for your attendance today. I hope we've been able to give you some sort of clarification, new information about the GTI program, perhaps even potentially a better pathway for those of you who are doing a PhD currently and think that you might fall within any of the key sectors, but still have a few questions. Feel free to get in contact and we'd be happy to talk to you further. Anything else you want to add, Robin, Annie?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Yeah, okay. Thì cảm ơn chị Minh. Thank you, Ruobing, for this very informative webinar. Hiện tại thì trên cái màn hình của quý vị á, là có những cái contact info, những cái thông tin liên hệ là email và số điện thoại hotline của Prospero Consulting. Nếu như mà mọi người có thêm câu hỏi nào sau cái buổi này hoặc là muốn book hẹn one on one với luật sư để mà có thể hỏi thêm những cái câu hỏi chi tiết hơn về cái hồ sơ của mình, thì mọi người hãy gửi về info@prosperoconsulting.com hoặc là alo số điện thoại hotline trực tiếp tại Úc luôn ha. Cảm ơn mọi người đã tham gia.
Okay, thank you everyone.
Thank you everyone. Stay safe.
Thank you, Min.